This is a matchup for the ages. Body cuts a path straight to the paint, and she serves up a slam dunk. Oh, Body may have the win, but Frank really got the W on that play. That's gotta hurt.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Reaction Time presented by our friends Fareway. It is officially the week of the NCAA Wrestling Championships, the best week of the year. It's Christmas. It's everything we look forward to all year, right? And it's literally 2 days away from the time we're recording this podcast. Ben, how you feeling?
So that's a loaded question because it's also my wedding week.
Oh yeah, sorry to bury the lead.
No, that's okay. So I'm excited, but I'm excited for a myriad of reasons. I'm excited to get married. I'm excited for wrestling. Like you said, this is like our wrestling Christmas. It is the best week of the year in wrestling. So you can couple that with getting married. This is one of the more exciting weeks of my life. So I'm really interested to see how this tournament shakes out. I think there's a lot of unknowns this year, and sometimes you go into it and like, oh yeah, he's winning. Like even a guy like Carter Starachi, who is like a 4-time national champ or whatever, he's got to go through Parker Keckeisen this year. Like that's a tough matchup. So even guys who are like normally you'd write off his locks, it's like, oh no, that's going to be tough. Gable Stevenson, obviously Olympic gold medalist, but their heavyweight is loaded this year. So can he make it through? I'm guessing yes, but I think this is a really intriguing NCAA tournament. And then where does Iowa State fall in all of this? We're going to have to find out.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of not only just getting to this point is you finally get to bring everyone in, right? I think when we were sitting down to really look at the brackets and see who guys realistically have a chance of facing off against in their road to victory, right? Like Pannier Johnson has been very vocal about his focus to try and get to the top. Well, we're in a bubble all season. Like we're in our Big 12 bubble. So it's so easy to forget just what's out there sometimes. And man, I just feel like so many, like, I don't know, like sport changing wrestlers are about to wrestle in their final tournament, which is just crazy. Because again, I've said this, I think now every year since I've attended, wrestling is so special in that you have the greatest wrestlers all over the country, all in one building over the course of 4 or 5 days. So yeah, in terms of Iowa State, I think when I was reflecting on the drive back from availability, it's one of those where, holy crap, we made it. The injuries have obviously been the theme. Iowa State qualified 8, which is great. It's the standard, right? Regardless of who the 8 are, it's the expectation for Kevin Dresser to have that many, if not more, just from the growth he's had at this program. But unfortunately, this year has just been plagued with injuries, and it's followed into Big 12 championships. We saw it in Evan Frost. We saw it in MJ Gaitan, Evan Bachman. I was like, who else got hurt? And again, not to mention what the other guys are feeling, right? Like everybody's tired. Everybody's bodies are beat up. So I think Dresser said it best. Let me ask him and ask us Friday night.
Yep.
How the heck we feel about how Iowa State was positioned going into this tournament with 8 guys. So
yeah,
that's kind of where we're at. But
yeah, because I don't mean to say anything disparaging about the 8 guys Iowa State is sending, but it's about the 8 guys that they're sending. And it does speak to the depth of Iowa State. So I want to give them credit for that. It speaks to the depth of them. But Casey Swiderski is not one of the people going. Younger Bastida is not one of the people going. Anthony Etchemendia is not one of the people going. So it's just really tough to look at this and be like, that's 3 All-Americans, first of all. And then what are the replacements doing? Jacob Frost is a 9 seed. So I think he can make a good run, but it's not as much of a lock as Anthony Etchemendia, right? Anthony, he was ranked number 4 or whatever, number 3. It's like, that's an All-American. I know what I'm looking at. That's an All-American. Jacob Frost, he could be around a 12 guy. He could be an All-American. Or I don't think this will happen, but it could happen. He could have a bad weekend. And we've seen that, not from Jacob Frost specifically, but we've seen that from other guys. Like, okay, Panero Johnson 2 years ago. We saw it from Panero. Won a Big 12 championship, and then I think he won one match his first NCAA tournament. Lost his first one, won a match on the backside, then lost again. So it's just, it's hard to feel really confident about this Iowa State lineup right now, making a deep run as a unit. I think some individuals might be able to do pretty well, but I think overall this is going to be a tough year. Even a guy like Evan Bachman, the 13 seed, a guy who you could expect maybe to get to round of 12, maybe an All-American, he's dealing with a knee injury that Kevin Dresser said. So Kevin Dresser made it a compliment. Evan Bachman's a super tough guy. Like, anyone else in the team would not be doing what Evan Bachman's doing. But Evan Bachman's really tough, so he's going to do it. And it's his last year. But that doesn't give me confidence.
Yeah.
Like, I love the toughness from Evan Bachman. That's great. But as a person who's sitting on his couch rooting for Iowa State, rooting for great wrestling, the Evan Bachman injury scares me. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. Daniel Herrera, true freshman heavyweight. I love that he made it. I hope he can score a couple team points. But he's not Younger Bastida. He's not going to be an All-American. Right. So it is one of those situations where if Iowa State has a really good weekend, if they have a lot of guys wrestling on Friday night, like Kevin Dresser said, yeah, they could finish as high as, top 10 maybe, in that 10 range. If that doesn't happen, they're going to be in the 20s. So this is, I think it's a really unpredictable lineup, even though we've watched a lot of them all year. But it's just injuries. I think Evan Frost before this last weekend was like All-American lock. That's what I felt about him. But now with his hamstring injury, how's he feeling? How's he going to be feeling going into it? I don't know. So I'm hoping he's feeling really good, because if he is, I do think he's an All-American. He's a guy that can score a lot of team points. And I do like his path. I still really like his path. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
So for those who may not be super familiar with the schedule, wrestling officially starts Thursday, March 20th, so this upcoming Thursday at 11 a.m. And everything from session 1 to session 3 will be, I'm like looking at this and I'm like, what is the schedule? ESPNU is where you can watch most of these. Like I said, Thursday mornings, 11 a.m. And then session 2 that evening will be 6 p.m. And then again, Friday, same thing, 11 a.m. But then the blood round will be at 7 p.m. And then Saturday, you'll have your placing matches at 10 a.m. And then the finals will go at 6 p.m. So a full 3 days of action. It'll be super chaotic and crazy to follow as always. I think when I look at, like you said, when I have to kind of like pick who am I looking at the most, I think I focus on guys to see just how they perform in terms of what they give. So like, do I think MJ Gaitan is going to go necessarily wrestle for a national championship in the finals? Probably not. That's a very, very stacked weight at 174 pounds. I mean, Keegan O'Toole, he talked about how much it sucked having to he said embarrassed right off the bat in his matchup at Big 12s. But like, I'm really excited to see how he competes, just because he is so unpredictable and he is making tweaks to kind of, have some sound wrestling mixed in with his funkiness to him. So like, I'm excited to see how he does. And I'm excited to see how Jacob Frost does. Just because he's one of those guys who wasn't necessarily supposed to be in the lineup, but is, and has done fairly well. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of some of the things I'm looking for, is just seeing what is it the guys are going to give now that they're in it. Yeah, that's kind of where my mindset is at.
No, I'm with you 100%. And I think we talked about a little bit about this on our bracket reaction, but I still love MJ's draw. Number 10, Alex Kramer. He's a 4-time NCAA qualifier, but has never made it past the round of 16. Mm-hmm. So while he's a pretty good wrestler, he's by no means a world beater. And I think that's the perfect draw for MJ. Someone who's good, he's going to give him a good feel, but MJ, I think he can win. So I do love his draw. I'm interested in guys like Panero Johnson, or a guy like Panero Johnson. I'm interested in Panero Johnson, just because he had such a disappointing NCAA championships his first go around, and like, he was a true freshman. So maybe it was unrealistic expectations on our part. But he had just won a Big 12 championship. He did it in super exciting fashion. So we were all really high, really hyped. We've seen him do some great things. And then he just kind of fell flat. So how has his mindset changed going into this NCAA Championships? And we saw at the Big 12s, the Panero that we've come to be really used to, winning matches by 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. And then every now and again, you get the match where he scores 3 takedowns and wins handily against a really good guy. So what kind of Panero are we going to see at NCAAs? I hope it's a consistent Panero, and I hope it's a Panero that scores a lot of points, because if that's the case, he could easily be an All-American. I love his draw. If he goes far enough, and assuming everything goes chalk, he's going to get Kyle Parko there, and I think it's the semifinals. It's either semi or quarterfinals, one of the two. And that's a match when Panero was a true freshman that went to sudden victory. I want to see that match again. So I really hope Panero's locked in. I know he always says the right things, and I'm sure he does the right things. It's just a matter of doing the right things on the mat. So yeah. I'm super interested to see what Panero can do. And a little bit in that same vein, Cody Chittum, too. Mm-hmm. Cody's a guy that, and Dresser said as much today, he is so competitive that sometimes he loses sight of what he needs to actually be doing. He gets so high and gets so low that he just doesn't keep the even keelness that you want to see. And we saw at Big 12s, he lost against Ryder Downey and just lost a match he never should have lost in that 5th place match. Cody Chittum's a guy who, if he keeps his head right, could do great things at this tournament. I still think that. I think he's an All-American caliber wrestler. Unfortunately, what we've seen from him in tournament is if something goes poorly, it can spiral for him. So if he's able to keep out of that spiral, I think he could do great things for Iowa State. So those are two guys just who have shown some really high-level abilities, but also have shown some inconsistencies in their wrestling that I think are going to make or break, truly, honestly, Iowa State's tournament.
I think I was, again, reflecting in the car. That's when I do all my thinking. I was like, kind of thinking of how I felt going into the Big 12 tournament. And I am always someone who leans on the positive side of things. I'm sure people who consistently listen to us know that I do that. And I just feel like walking out of Big 12s, it kind of like made me come back to the, hey, as much as these guys may have a lot of the tools they need, there's just like a fine line, right, between completely exceeding expectations and then completely crumbling under like the pressure. And last year, the team went into nationals with such like a chip on their shoulder. You could just tell from the energy of the way they all felt as a unit that there was no stopping them. Like you could not tell any of those guys, they weren't the best. Like I think of just like the force that was Casey Swiderski on that team, right? And like the way he fed into guys like MJ Gaitan. And I just think of what the vibe was last year, and it's just so different this year. So again, it's like, yeah, I look at guys like Cody Chittum and MJ Gaitan, and how do they respond to this new situation they're going into? And like you said, Panero's a really good one. I feel like I try and guess how these guys are going to do, and things are just so unpredictable. And I usually try and gauge things by how Dresser comes off in his interview. And I will say I appreciate him, Herrera, and Gaitan is who we spoke with at availability. All three were just kind of very candid about their feelings. Like the guys talked about their nerves, which they never do. That is so rare when athletes admit that something made them nervous, something made them in any shape or form questioning how they felt going into competition. And both guys talked about how, Herrera talked about the nerves he felt before he went into the tournament, which makes complete sense. You're a true freshman. You weren't supposed to be there, and now you are. And MJ talked about, the nerves of the fact that he hadn't felt his body do what it was doing. Dresser described how he couldn't even really get into all fours or couldn't really get into a proper stance, which is really scary. Yeah. Like it's very, very limiting. And so I appreciated their candid answers, which just made me feel more confident in that you just got to go into this weekend just open to all possibilities. I'm ready to be surprised because someone exceeded expectations. And I'm also prepared to see some guys maybe trip and fall.
Yep.
I could see all of them go either way. So
Yeah,
just a weird place.
Yeah, no, going back to your point about last year's team having a chip on their shoulder and just being a force, I think a lot of that has to do with leadership, and that would be David Carr, right? This team, their oldest guy is Evan Bachman, who's a transfer. Everyone else is a sophomore or younger. And while I think this team has the tools to have great leadership, it's hard to lead as a sophomore. And we talked about Casey Swiderski being that guy. And I still think he can be, but he's also hurt right now. And even Kevin Dresser said before the season, Younger Bastida is a guy who could step into a leadership role. And I'm sure he could, but he's hurt. And it's hard to lead when you're hurt on the sidelines. So I think that's another thing that shouldn't be overlooked is last year had consistent, excellent leadership from David Carr. And this year's team, I think, it was always going to lose that. You were always going to lose the David Carr effect, which should not be overlooked. But it also just it was never going to have anyone to fill that void either, because no one has the seniority yet. Even Casey Swiderski talked about, he's like, I haven't had the credentials yet to be able to be a leader. Cody Chittum has said that he doesn't have the credentials to be a leader. So I think it's something that'll grow with this team as the years come. But I think that's another thing with this year's team is it's just so young that it's hard to have leadership. I think the Frost brothers could both be leaders by example, but they're also sophomores. So it's tough right now. Iowa State wrestling is not in a bad position by any stretch of the imagination, but this was always going to be a year where we weren't going to match last year. I don't think that was ever my expectation. I think going into it, like, okay, top 7 team, maybe top 5 team. If everyone stays healthy. But especially once injuries started happening, it's like, okay, you lose the ability and skills of David Carr, you lose the leadership of David Carr, and then all the injuries start happening. It's like, okay, so everyone's a sophomore except Evan Bachman, who, by all accounts, is like really tough and a great guy and a good leader, but like he's not going to be able to come in and take over a team either. Yeah. So that's something I don't think should be overlooked with this either.
Yeah, and plus you were wrestling for something very specific, right? Like the rhetoric the entire season was David Carr wants a team trophy. He wants to bring home a team trophy. It's all he ever talked about. And it's a lot of what the team would talk about. So something Dresser would talk about. He'd be like, well, David really wants a team trophy, so we got to go get one. And yeah, it sucks. I will say Casey was on the floor during the Big 12 tournament. I don't think that was really something I had mentioned because, again, we had so many things to talk about. But he was on the floor, and you could see him in the corner of a lot of matches, just screaming his head off, trying to, coach in air quotes, as much as he felt he could do in that moment. So, but I mean, Coach said it, like some of those guys are going to be in the stands when they didn't expect themselves to be there. So that really sucks. But
yeah. And some of those guys like Casey can be great leaders. I want to make that very clear. They can be. They just
can and
aren't
will be,
right
I
now.
think.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed.
I think the thing is, we're at the end of the year. This is it. There's no more thinking, what if, God, I wish this would have happened, or imagine if, it just kind of is what it is. And the guys who earned their way there did it. Maybe it wasn't the most graceful, but it's showtime. Once they get on, what is it, 8 a.m.? They were started at 11. Yeah, once it's 8 a.m. and they're at the arena checking in, there's no looking back. There's no more time to dwell on what could have been. I'm sure Dresser will feel it towards the end, as you kind of look at how you ended up performing to what you maybe could have done, especially when you get a lay of the land, right? Like, how did everybody else do? How could have these guys done against XYZ? So I think it's just kind of time to just take it in stride. Time to go. I think one thing I do want to bring up is Daniel Herrera today. He said there was no doubt in his body that he was going to get that at-large bid. I appreciate the confidence. Like that is exactly the type of ego we talk about wrestlers having. And I'm curious if Daniel knew he had that ego in him. But I appreciate it. I love that he didn't have any doubt in his mind. He described how he was starting to get text messages from, I'm going to assume like friends or other people just reaching out, congratulating him on the season. And he said that he would respond like, what do you mean? I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
Which I respect it.
I respect the confidence. That if I'm assuming that's true, I think he's probably too young to know better. But as someone who has seen this a time or two, I was not confident that he would get a spot. I thought there was a very good path for him to get. I was like, oh, I could do the math and follow flow charts. Be like, I think Daniel Herrera could get a spot, but I was not confident that he was going to get one. Yeah. So I'm glad he was confident. I'm glad he ended up getting one. I think it's an incredible testament to him and his season that a true freshman at heavyweight got a spot and at large. Who knows what he does at the tournament? He's got Ben Keeter in the first round. He said he's been talking with Younger about how to wrestle Ben Keeter. That was obviously the one match Younger wrestled this year and beat Ben Keeter. So, hopefully, Younger can instill some knowledge and advice into Daniel, and we'll see what he can do. But the confidence of a young true freshman who doesn't know any better is sometimes a sight to behold.
It's almost like a positive.
Yeah, they don't know any better.
Yeah, you're just kind of...
Just go out there and do it.
Was it him that once he was wrestling at the tournament, it was him, right? Who said, once I was like there in wrestling, he felt very free during it. Oh, I love that. Just because that's my favorite thing wrestlers say. But I love that he felt it. It just shows, it's a testament to his confidence over the season, which I think is a really cool... One of the storylines you should look at and praise from all the bad things we've had to talk about. So
no, his growth, and we talked about a little bit about it today, but his growth physically, mentally, and maturity wise, I don't know that I've seen it in sports like just period. His body from the beginning of the year to even now, you can almost see it change week by week. Like he is built now, and I remember early in the season he did not look built. He was a little bit doughy, a little bit pudgy, but not anymore. And then he's talked about his ability to grow mentally just throughout the season, not having confidence at times. And then now, like you just said, Big 12 is like, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to go throw it all out there. And he said the same thing about NCAAs coming up. He's like, I was nervous earlier in the week, but now I found a sense of peace. I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to see what I can do. So, again, Daniel Herrera will very likely redshirt next year. I think that'll be great for him, but he is going to be great in the future for Iowa State, I believe.
I know. I'm excited for him. Other fun fact I saw today, shout out to Andy, the SID, tweeting out the facts. He said Evan and Jacob Frost are one of 5 sets of brothers and 2 sets of twins in this year's field. So
yeah,
shout out to the brothers. Wonder how they feel going into this weekend. You know, you get to share a room with your brother because he's competing. I'm sure that was difficult for them. Or I guess I wonder if they had to be separated last year since Jacob wasn't competing.
I wouldn't think so.
Because Jacob traveled. I'm just curious how they break up the rooms. A question for another time. What else are you looking forward to? Just in general. It doesn't even have to be about Iowa State.
Yeah. I might be stealing yours, but
Probably.
AJ Ferrari and Zach Glazier. I think that's going to be incredible for some of the people who might not follow wrestling as closely. AJ Ferrari was a national champion at 197 pounds as a true freshman at Oklahoma State. He promptly got kicked off the team due to a number of just the dumbest things and decisions you've ever seen in your life. And then tried to transfer to Iowa and did not ever step on the mat for Iowa, but he wrestled in what is called a Soldier Salute, which is a tournament. He was wrestling unattached, and he wrestled potential teammate Zach Glazier in the tournament. Ferrari won, did the splits, and gave the entire audience, everyone in the arena, the double birds. Just flipped everyone in the arena off. Unsurprisingly, he did not become a Hawkeye and transferred to one of the California schools out there. And he's got a first-round matchup with Zach Glazier from Iowa. So There is not many times where I root for a Hawkeye. Spencer Lee was one of them a couple of times, but I will be pulling hard for Zach Glazier. I want him to win. I don't think it'll happen, but what a phenomenal storyline. And if Ferrari does win and he gives everyone in Philadelphia the double birds, I will fall off my couch laughing.
Yeah, like I said at the start of the pod, it's so exciting that wrestling gets to bring in every single wrestler into this one building. So instead of having to follow along how other teams are doing, you get to just be there. So definitely excited for that. Hope it happens. Hope it is as memorable. I don't anticipate seeing the double birds. I would guess that AJ.
I would love it if it happened.
I know. I would guess AJ is a little more aware that he can't do that. But, who the heck
wouldn't
knows?
put it past him.
I would say, who the heck knows? Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy who tried to pass on the highway going up a hill and nearly got 2 people killed. So not a lot of awareness from this guy.
I feel like when I think of the tournament, you had texted Aiden and I this during Big 12s about just like the difference between like your decent wrestlers, good wrestlers, and then like your Keegan O'Toole's of the world, your Wyatt Hendricksons. And I am so excited to see all those guys in person. Yep. I have never seen Gable Steveson in person, so I'm really excited to just be in front of guys who completely evolved their weights, specifically at heavyweight, right? Like we are losing just elite talent in Gable Steveson and Wyatt Hendrickson and Craig Kirkfleet and who else am I thinking? Colton Schultz, who's maybe not as athletic as the other guys, but gosh, who else am I missing?
Those are the big names. Ben Keeter's an up-and-comer, but he's obviously not graduating.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see those guys just because, again, the talent. I mean, Keegan O'Toole as well.
Yeah, Keegan O'Toole, Dina Mitty, if that finals happens again, I'll be so happy.
Yes,
that was an awesome match at Big 12s. I would love to see it in the finals again. And like you mentioned, that's every single NCAA finals is that level of match. When we were watching Big 12s, like the 100, I think it was like 149 pounds or whatever, like it was the 5 seed versus the 8 seed. Like, it's good wrestling. It's very good wrestling, but it is not elite wrestling. And when you see a guy like Keegan O'Toole and Dina Mitty wrestle, like, that's elite wrestling. When you see Greg Kirkfleet and Gable Steveson wrestle, it's like, that's elite wrestling. So it's just so exciting to watch it all unfold. At the NCAA Wrestling Championships, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you're a sports fan, not even a wrestling fan, just a sports fan, it needs to be on your bucket list. And I know it coincides on the first weekend of the men's basketball NCAA tournament. The NCAA Wrestling Championships is way better. I'm a big basketball fan. There is no atmosphere like NCAA Wrestling Championships. It's so far above and beyond anything that basketball can put on. It's insane. If you like sports at all, the NCAA Wrestling Championships needs to be on your sports list or on your bucket list.
I echo that. I've said this in the past. I worked a Super Bowl. I've been there when the Eagles won their first Super Bowl, when a fan literally ripped out a seat from US Bank Stadium because it was such a memorable game. And I still don't think that compares to what just nationals is, and especially the blood round. I can't wait to feel incredible. The blood round just in my skin when I'm there. I'm so excited, just because it's like we're always giving athletes crap when they're saying like, oh, the next one's the most important one. But like, that's really truly like very much the situation at nationals. Every single match matters, regardless of who the heck you're going up against. Like, you can go look at anyone's matchup. I'd say probably Pinero's, just since he's the highest seed, right? Like, just crazy things happen at the tournament, and it's going to be a really good tournament. And unfortunately, a lot of really significant wrestlers are graduating. So this is the last time we'll see him in college, aka Parker Keisen. That's going to be a chaos situation now that he and Carter Sirachi are going to be, at some point, I would hope, head to head. So It's just, it's going to be a really fun time. it's not an exaggeration that for the people in wrestling, this is truly better than Christmas, I think.
Yep.
So, Aiden, not to put you on the spot, I'm curious if you have anything you're looking forward to when it comes to nationals.
Sleep.
Sleep?
I don't
What'd you
have
say?
any thoughts. Sorry.
I feel like at least in wrestling, it's just Ben and I. It's not as chaotic as all the other things we have going on. Because Cyclone Fanatic, it's officially overlap season, so it is chaos time at all hours here. Specifically, Aiden, who has to manage all these shows across not only Cyclone Fanatic but Iowa everywhere. So at least for us, we just get to focus on wrestling. So, but like I said, action starts on Thursday. All of this coverage, and I will be flying out Wednesday, is all presented in courtesy of our friends at Fareway. I will be there getting you as much updates as I physically can while on the floor. Chaos time is at all times at the tournament, unfortunately, so it's kind of hard to get stuff out, but thankfully Fareway supports the sport and supports Cyclone Fanatic, so I get to be there to bring you not just, match updates, but there's just so much going on, so much emotions that are flying left and right. It's just, it's a lot going on, and I'm very fortunate to be able to go down there and cover it all. And man, let's just see what the heck the Cyclones can do this year. I'm just hoping for the best.
I think that's all you can do at this point.
So, but it'll be good. It'll be great. I think I'm still hoping Aiden Riggins does something chaotic.
Hey, I'd love it.
In his matchup against Michael Caliendo from Iowa. So.
Caliendo.
Ben, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I have no idea what my actual expectations are. I really don't. I'd love a top 10 finish for Iowa State. I don't think that probably happens.
Yeah.
But I do think that's about the ceiling. I want to see Panero have a really good tournament. Mm-hmm. Everything that he went through, his first NCAAs, the things that happened last year, all that. I want to see him have a successful NCAA tournament, which to me would be All-American. So that's what I'm looking for. Same thing with Cody Chittum. I don't know if I need to see an All-American from him. I just need to see him wrestle consistently throughout the entire tournament. So if he does that, I think he'll be an All-American. But those are the two things that I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, I echo everything you just said. Just really hope guys can bounce back and be reminded of what they're capable of in an unconventional season. So, like I said, it's chaos time. I'll have all the updates at Cyclone Fanatic across all social platforms. I'll share as much as I physically can get while in Philadelphia. And happy wedding week, Ben.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. And as always, go support Fareway. Despite this weird storm coming, it's going to be nice out here. So go get your groceries at Fareway and go support the people who support the sport you love.